Welcome. Welcome to Astrology with Agneta. I'm going to talk about the month of November of 2024. It is an important month. As we all know, there is a US election on November 5th, but we try not to talk about the politics in prediction or observation of cycles. It is an important month anyway. We start off with a new moon in the sign of Scorpio, and that is the sun, and the moon is in Scorpio. And that is an way of looking at a new month that becomes very important because it's also the saints' day, and whoever the saints are, may they all protect us during this time of not only a focus on the United States, the world at large, the wars raging. So this month is about finding that inner voice, the inner peace, because there's big changes to come, and that we should be very respectful for, to look at cycles in astrology. So the new moon always comes with some kind of, it's good to retreat into the Scorpio ionic energy at often, or sometimes Scorpio is not very understood. But they also a very dedicated sign, as the Scorpionic energy might be out to force energy to us, as would be for those who have Scorpio, know that you have to be quiet sometimes, but you also speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So the same day is also very good for the Saturn, which is in Pisces. So we have to be clear about how we start this whole cycle of November. To take it in personal, there's some really good energies coming through to pay attention to what we really want, because I'm going to go through the cycle starting on November 19th. I will save that because before that, we kind of look at, and maybe if we look at November 5th, we move up to Mars, for example, on the 3rd, goes into the warrior, but he's also action taker. Mars is known to be more or less somebody that will be angry, rage, splash out words, but it's also about having the right to say our opinion, having the righteousness to stand up for the rights of humanity, perhaps now, especially women's future. Roe versus Wade is very controversial in perhaps not just election, in the whole picture, when we see how Mars is almost provocative at times. It does rule intimacy, sexuality, so it has that like birth to come forth, and it was blood pressure. I understand that some of you, or maybe not me, because I try to really be neutral in my own little middle way. I can't be neutral anymore. But there's a middle way to make sure that we take this as a huge shift in the way that I looked and have done lectures and workshop. But this is also an opportunity to make the right decision on November 5th for the future. And you will follow me. If you follow me, then that's why I want to talk a little bit about the election day. Not so much, but when Mars goes into Leo, that is the fire, is Aries in the Mars belongs to Aries. So there's a lot of fire coming up. So we need to just take care of that blood pressure, make sure we integrate our belief system, how we take care of ourselves. And so therefore, I want to talk about this Mars, that he will go retrograded on December 6th and then be all the way through the new year up to February 24th, 2025. So it's a long cycle, or we can then regain our own inner strength. But whatever this election is about, is also the planetary huge cycle that we are experiencing as we speak. So that when we then look at Jupiter and Saturn are fighting against each other, they were meeting each other in the 2020, but then they come together again at this point also, because they go into even May of 2025, where they square and challenge each other. Saturn, government, principle, restrictions, depression, but also taking charge and be disciplined in our own personal path of being thankful. Perhaps not everybody in this country can be thankful, but maybe you and I can be thankful for even implement certain voices that we need to be heard. We can stand up for our rights. And therefore, with this retrograde motion until February 24th, 2025, then there is a sensitive sign that oppose this other big thing that I will get to shortly, because there is a very important part of how we see why it's not just the fact of the election, is the fact of that for the United States of America was supposedly in respect to science, research, respectfully to Native American, maybe there was something here before July 4th, 1776. But the Constitution is also a platform of that. Maybe that was another day too. It's all those different academic research that we do, but it's still the birthday, July 4th, that we use. And so Pluto was not discovered until 1930, but he still is a very important part. And I will read you some keywords for Pluto. But he has traveled around the United States chart for 248 years. And he's coming back to that birth point. Therefore, it's not just November 5th that is important. He will stay in the 1 degree and 2 degrees throughout 2025 and 2026, when he will meet other outer planets. So therefore, then he will stay in Aquarius. Aquarius in itself is new thoughts, is a way of looking at the water barrier for the visionary that we all have, or that we all would like to have a safe future. Is it tomorrow? Maybe not, but there is a vision for another 20 years, actually. So when I then take this sheet when I have done lectures, and for many, many years, I don't even know how long I have had this, but these are the outer planets, which is mass consciousness. So if you listen to this who have either late Capricorn degree, 28, 29, or an early Pisces, then you are affected more than somebody else, perhaps. But when we take the keywords for Pluto, in the part of using astrology, there is that two side of political parties, two side of the coin, two side opinion. I know, you don't. I have the right answer. You know nothing. So when we then take the two, we can call them challenging and beneficial part of Pluto, or all planets for that matter. Then the challenge of Pluto is death, transformation, corruption, taxes, obsession, crime, and secrets unveiled. And they also rule the sexuality, which is also Mars, by the way, with this retrograde motion. But it also has that connotation when I get into the myth shortly. So the beneficial part of Pluto is rebirth, cleansing, faith, revitalization, commitment, alternative living, and the truth shall prevail. So you have this back and forth, like in both September and October, Aquarius, back and forth. He did go into Aquarius in January of 2024, but then the back and forth, and then November 19th, he moves forward and will not go back into Capricorn. Aquarius then move forward, but it takes a while, like I mentioned. But it's also an important part for us to know that when Pluto, the god of the underworld, forces Persephone, the maiden Persephone, down to the underworld, she's forced. There's rapes, there is corruption. However, there's always that hope for revitalization, for new growth. So she has to be in the underground with Pluto, the male energy, corruption, and all that secrets, and the not so good part of Pluto. But Pluto also learned he has to promise Persephone to go up and meet her mother, excuse me. He has a mother too. And there is Ceres that rules the whole agriculture that is also changes as we speak ecologically, the whole warming climate, the water, and all that changing of the earth. So barren is then when Persephone and Pluto is underground, underworld, the dark side. But in the promise of a new beginning is then the 6 months when she's allowed to come up and reap and be together with her mother again in a safe surrounding. She knows she has to go back, and that's the cycle why this November is important. It does have indirectly to do with politics, but we also cannot refuse the change that just everybody, the devastation that happens. And also Neptune, the planet of the water, is also opposing Neptune in United States 1776 natal chart. So therefore, when we then look at that whole part of going back to, for example, why November 19 or 20th, depending daylight saving time and how you see it, is huge as a shift into believing that there is security, there is new visions, there's new hope for the young children, the young women, the young men to have hope for the future should we go into the right direction. And so then there is that also when we talk about this sensitive part, Mars also plays a part and role because it opposes Pluto. In the technical part of astrology, Mars used to have two rulers, as in Aries and Scorpio. When we discovered, or when the scientists discovered Pluto in 1930, they become two rulers. So we use both of them. So they're very intimate connection. To me, it definitely rules the abortion, the rapes that we hear over and over nowadays. And it's devastating for young women to have to go through what they go through at this point. Eventually, hopefully, very soon, that will change because of the hope of the Plutonic energy. So when we see that, part of the 19th, and then we have before November 19th, we also have a full moon that prepares for this big change. So hopefully there is more peace in the world. It could take another 2 years for the whole shift in the world at large to really feel that we have had enough of birth and death in this whole challenging times. So we have both Saturn has been retrograded for a while since June. So now Saturn, which is the government, which is the way of discipline, he belongs to Capricorn, says we have to do it this way. Who's the government? Who do we trust nowadays? So then on November 15th, that also precede the November 19th. So we have this shift. And of course, the full moon on the 15th is in Taurus because the sun is still in Scorpio, and then the moon in Taurus, but the moon likes to be in Taurus. So there's that part of, they have some positive aspects at that time. Uranus, suddenly things can happen. That is a 7-year cycle, and Uranus is also the unpredictable planet, if you will. I will take my sheet again and give you the way of making choices, making sure we make the right choices. He went into Taurus in March of 2019 and will go out not until 2026. But that's part of why November in this election is important. Whether you vote or not, you're still going to move into a different direction, and changes takes time. The challenges with Uranus is earthquakes, thunder and hurricanes, revolution, security risks, hacking, and terrorists. Part of Uranus is scientific discoveries, awareness of climate change, evolution, cyberspace, and internet, because it is part of that we have to accept everything that goes on in that AI, which I don't know about and I prefer not to. And security. It also rules anything that is different, the arts, the expression, the LGBTQ community, all the stuff that is going on is also Uranus. And then since I'm at it now with my little cheat sheet, Neptune, February 2012 will go out in January 2026. The challenges of Neptune is like, hello, it is deception, escapism into the drugs and alcohol, oils and wells. Are we cleaning that? And the water, as I mentioned earlier. Neptune does not only rule the water, it is the water. It is so important to clean the waters. So the beneficial part of Neptune is the dreams, spirituality, meditation, and yoga that we see increasing every day as we speak. Therapy, so that we have some coaching therapy, astrology. Actually, Uranus rules astrology. Is healing components of awareness of clearing oceans, the lakes. There's many resources that you can find. So that we have this Saturn coming into Pisces, the government restrictions. And there is that we have to be more disciplined with how we walk the earth. And it comes into forefront when this Uranus comes into the full moon on November 15th, that there is a chart, there is a full moon chart shows the Neptune being positive, and the evening of that, of course, is 2-3 days before and after. We go right into the November 19th big change. So that full moon is extra beneficial to take that time out and taking the not let it get to us, but making sure we make the right decision for not just ourselves, but for the earth, Mother Earth, all the shifts that's going on. Even though it might take 2 years for it really to be implemented, the United States of America became a very powerful country. Will it stay that way, or does it have to be shift? Then that would be something that we should pay attention to. There was also on November 21st, Sun entered the sign Sagittarius. There was more knowledge, happy new visions and goals. And that's very well to the Sun at that point. It just comes into being a more aware and practical vision for our future. Then, some of you have heard about Mercury being retrograded. Well, that also happened in November, on November 25th. And back of the mind, we will keep that Mars retrograded because he's still in Leo. He's stationed retrograde on December 14th until December 14th, a short period. Mars is much longer. He goes retrograde every other year, and Mercury 3 times a year. So he goes retrograde until December 14th. Mars in Leo, still in motion as well until 2025. So we can't avoid this Persian degree of 29 degrees, which is then how Pluto has traveled all the way into the 30 degrees that we use in astrology. So the 29 is then right there by the full moon on November 15 into the 1921. So those are the times for connecting into, oh, I was right, I was wrong, what's going to happen? You will be fine as long as you connect into these times of big changes. And changes sometimes are not easy, but when we know, or we think we know, then it's also always for the benefit of our own individual choices, our own individual vote, our own individual how we perceive. Maybe you don't vote. There's those who are too confused or don't even care. We take care of you. We follow through, but what little we have always done for years, we continue doing our work for a positive result on this big change. We also have in the United States Thanksgiving. This year is on the 28th, and perhaps the moon is in Scorpio, so perhaps it's a good time to talk about the weather. Oh, it's not changing, but it's a beautiful day to be perhaps thankful for the host and say thank you. We end the month of November with another new moon, and that will be Sagittarius, because now that the new moon is always sun and the moon in the same sign. And there's a beautiful aspect to Mercury in the visionary, having the hope. And in that too, I want to mention Aries is a fire sign, and the sign, the planetoid Chiron has been in Aries and now will stay with us through this whole change. Heal or heal thyself. And he will actually be very prominent throughout this time too of November, December, January, and will also be in the sky, if you will, until April of 2027. So the promise that there is a continuing, as we have chosen to live right now, the path of resistance to go within and not let the misinformation, can we trust anything? Saturn in Pisces will say, dreams, vision, taking the walks, swim with your feelings, don't hide them. Find a way to move them out of your body, mind, and spirit, perhaps. So even though the November is quite strong, we also will know that the outlook of this election perhaps has everything or nothing to do with how we feel. And therefore, we trust the universe to make the right choice on November 5th. I do thank you for being with me today. You could get in touch with me on my internet, my Facebook, but also stay safe with love, peace, and harmony. Thank you so much. Be well.